The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has recovered 5 billion naira and $10 million from contractors and government officials implicated in fraudulent turnaround maintenance contracts for Nigeria's refineries in Port Harcourt, Kaduna, and Warri. Investigations revealed large-scale fraud through over-invoicing, contract inflation, and questionable payments, which contributed to the persistent failure of the refineries despite billions of dollars allocated for rehabilitation.
The EFCC is reportedly also pursuing the recovery of an additional 10 billion naira and $13 million allegedly siphoned by contractors. The anti-graft agency is probing past and current officials of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, involved in these deals, with charges expected to follow. Nigeria's 4 refineries have remained largely inactive for decades, forcing the country to rely on petroleum imports despite successive administrations budgeting billions for turnaround maintenance. Joining us in this conversation is public affairs analyst Mr. Dayo Akintobi. Thank you so much for being here, Mr.
Thanks for joining us this morning.
I think we can finally give a sigh of relief and say, finally, it seems the EFCC is doing the Lord's work, or what Nigerians have been expecting the EFCC to have done.
Recovery is different from conviction.
Yeah, I mean, Nigerians have been asking, okay, go this direction. At least start from there. I don't know what your take is.
Well, the EFCC is not telling us anything we don't already know. The fact that these refineries have not worked for so long, and each successive administration has put so much money into this thing called turnaround maintenance, and the refineries have still refused to work. So Nigerians have always known that there's a pipeline siphoning this money some kind of way. And now that the EFCC is telling us, I think they've not told us enough, because I would rather have seen a situation where when they're bringing these revelations, to come with names, to come with indictments, to come with prosecutions, and to come with convictions and penalties. I don't think it's enough to recover the money, because that doesn't serve as a deterrence to prohibit such practices in the future. The EFCC likes to beat its chest and crow quite a bit that we recovered this sum of money, but the fact that you recovered the money has not made up for depriving the Nigerian people of their commonwealth. Whoever did this, I want the contractors named, I want the NNPCL staff paraded before the television and taken to court publicly. I don't think it's enough. The FCC shouldn't have come with this report yet until it is ready to reveal the names, prosecute the perpetrators, and see them publicly punished and sanctioned. It's not enough restitution when you pay back what you took. You've not cured the harm adequately just by paying back what you deprive people from enjoying. So I think, okay, so the FCC is in the right direction, but just like many in the past, how do we know this won't be swept under the rug after all the hoopla and noise? 6-9 months down the road, ask after any of these cases, see if you'll hear anything.
Now, we have a system in Nigeria where, we're so quick to announce big recoveries or big investigations. And like you rightly said, a lot of them don't end up being prosecuted. We don't see convictions. Now, what is it about the system? And I'm not talking about this administration. It's been a tradition since the Obasanjo days through Yar'Adua, Goodluck, Jonathan. People find it easy to access public funds and, to steal these huge sums of monies or misappropriate these huge sums of money. Don't we have early warning systems or mechanisms that can prevent? Because at the end of the day, what we do is all recovery, and then there's plea bargaining, you waste the time of the court and taxpayers' money, and these people still keep a percentage of their ill-gotten wealth. Don't we? How do they do it in other climes? Don't we have any warning systems or things that just make it extremely difficult for you to cheat the system?
Everyone's complicit. Everyone from the lowliest clerk to the biggest DG is complicit in this system. So we've built a structure that not only enables corruption, but encourages it. And I dare say that even from the public service, the civil service, political appointees, everyone who's going into government is going with this notion that I'm going to feather my nest. The moment you get an appointment,
it's my time to eat.
It's my time to eat. And how you would even know is how people begin to complain that, oh, I didn't get a juicy ministry. I didn't get a juicy cabinet position. I didn't get... So if already the notion, that term juicy, is already in our lexicon to describe public service, you know that the general mindset is one whereby I'm going there to take care of myself, take care of my cronies. The system is built that way. There are early warning systems. Why do we have Department of Public Procurement, for example? Why do we have the FEC having to approve contracts over a certain amount? So they built checks and balances into the system, but they don't work because the people who operate those very checks and balances are complicit in the notion of everybody looking out for themselves. So that
they have ways of baiting the system.
Absolutely.
And why don't we see real-life examples of, punitive measures against people that have been found guilty of corruption?
Well, I will begin to ask you that why is it that people high up in government today just need to join a particular political party and their sins are forgiven? I mean, that goes to show you that even at the highest levels, there is no accountability, there is no punishment, there is no discouraging anybody from acting as they
This
please.
is an anomaly.
Absolutely. Nigeria is an anomaly. Nigeria's political system is an anomaly. And yes.
Now let's look at, these are very strong revelations, but what role do these revelations play in the broader conversation about, our refineries? Despite the huge allocations, they're largely non-operational, and conversation as to their sale or their reviving has been in the news. We're not quite sure. One minute we're hearing that they're going to sell the refineries, the other minute we're hearing that they're going to invest in them. So do you think that this discovery in a way impacts the conversation about the life of our refineries?
Well, yes, it does, because for once it's been openly admitted. What we've known all along has finally been openly admitted. And whatever the way forward is for the refineries, during the President Obasanjo regime, they were actually sold before President Yar'Adua came and reversed that sale, which is what led to the Dangote refinery coming to life. But the bottom line is, they've become an albatross around the neck of Nigerians, these refineries, 4 of them, because they're just a sinkhole of sucking resources, and they've never really operated to optimal capacity. So I think at this point, much of the technology is obsolete. You can't compare what Dangote's refinery, the technology is capable of, with what these 4 that were built in the 70s. And whoever buys them today, if they do get sold, the primary concern of that person is, how do I plug the loopholes that doesn't allow massive amounts of oil to go missing? I saw a video once in Saudi Arabia or Kuwait where every drop of oil that goes through the system is tracked. Tracked on a computer system. They can tell where every where every drop that comes out of the ground, all the way to where it gets refined, they can see it on a screen. In Nigeria, how do we even know today how many gallons or how many drums of oil, how many barrels of oil we actually extract from the ground today? Can we say to an accurate point with certainty that this is how much oil we produce per day? So this would be a problem for a would-be investor, that assuming I begin to look at reviving these refineries with their obsolete technology, putting a whole lot of money into it, how can I be sure that it will continue to be compromised? Because the kind of investor that can probably do this is likely to be foreign, FDI, and they're not used to our culture. That's why you saw people like Econet run away from Nigeria, where we ran rings around them in terms of bribery, corruption, and all of the things that accompanied that scenario. Foreigners don't know how to cope with the way we do business here in Nigeria. So anybody would be circumspect to think about getting involved in those refineries now. As far as I'm concerned, they probably should be sold for parts or scrapped, and let's write it off and move on.
I want us to look at also the fact that the current NNPCL boss has been called to the assembly to come and speak on the missing 210 trillion naira. He didn't go.
Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah.
Prior to his resuming office, the previous GMD, Milikiari, was equally invited.
Yes.
And it took some time before he eventually showed face.
Yes.
Before we later heard it was, he resigned.
Yes.
We've seen this one too many times where those at the forefront of the NNPCL, just deny showing up when they are called to come and give account as regards what's happening, just like the recent 210 trillion naira. Do you think that this situation is bigger than even the current NNPCL boss? It will take, I would say, both the president and every single person involved to solve this situation once and for all.
Well, the NNPCL, as we all know, is our cash cow. It is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And as a result, those in charge of it, they rule with impunity. How can the National Assembly summon you and you shun them? The reason is because even the National Assembly is dependent on the NNPCL for its daily bread. So to what extent can they lock horns with the leadership of the NNPCL without paying a price for it? At one point, the CBN was complaining that the NNPC had not remitted billions of naira that it was supposed to have paid in. So NNPCL bigwigs have a tendency to view themselves as above board because they hold the purse strings of the country. And as a result, they begin to get that sense of infallibility, that sense of unaccountability, that they're all powerful and nobody can talk to them. But I think there's systemic within the culture of the NNPC, not just the leadership, because you see it even when the leadership changes. You see it still continuing.
So it's not a leadership problem,
no, it's
as
not.
much as it is a culture problem within the NNPC.
Absolutely.
So what needs to change for the culture within the NNPC to change? And again, does this bring up the conversation about the president being the Minister of Petroleum?
I thought that when the NNPCL was privatized, when it became a limited company, the whole idea was to break down the structure, reset it up, unbundle it, set it up as a limited liability company that has investors, which makes it more accountable. They have a board of directors, they have shareholders they're accountable to, and of course shareholders will complain once they begin to see their profits eroded. So I thought that was the whole purpose of breaking down and unbundling the NNPC and privatizing it to an extent, even though government is still a majority shareholder, that it would make things a bit more transparent, a bit more accountable, and streamline the areas of leakages and things like that. But that hasn't happened, probably because the line staff, from the clerk all the way up to the GMD, they're all still the same with the same mindset. So the culture has not been purged of that incestuous relationship of, intertwined, interlocking ideas whereby resources are siphoned. It still exists. So the unbundling didn't work in terms of what it wanted to do. And perhaps you are correct that the president being the Minister of Petroleum kind of undermines that sector because there's no authoritative head who is focused specifically on that industry. So you have the GMD of the NNPC reporting directly to the president because he's his direct line boss. Suppose he had a substantive minister whose primary job...
There's a minister of state for...
There's a minister of state. Yes, but he's a minister of state. He's a junior minister. And I'm sure the NNPC boss can thumb his nose at the junior minister and tell him where to get off because he reports directly to the president.
Now let's talk about Nigerians, the ordinary Nigerians that are currently burdened with fuel subsidy removal, the floating of the naira, double digits inflation. Now we just finished a discussion on 4% FOB customs levy. When they hear about billions siphoned from refineries, what does this say about the social contract between the government and its citizens, and how much longer can they hold on to this sort of betrayal? And also to the point you made about President Obasanjo selling the refineries and Yar'Adua reversing that sale. In hindsight, could it have been a better alternative? Because we can see how effective the Dangote refineries and the little modular refineries we have here and there, just to kill this cash cow that politicians have used as the ATM, to milk the nation.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about betrayal, it's difficult to apportion blame to a specific administration because it's been a common denominator among all of them since we came back in 1999, since we came back to democracy. So the first duty of every government apart from the protection of life and property, is to see to the welfare of its citizens, the well-being of Nigerians. So when ordinary Nigerians who are having difficulty at buying petrol at 800 naira a litre and having difficulty at paying band A electricity tariff, when they hear about how many billions and billions and billions of naira have been siphoned from the NNPC, of course it is disgruntling and discouraging. But we ourselves as a people, we celebrate success or apparent success irrespective of how the success is achieved. So we ourselves have ourselves to blame because we don't ask how people got their money, we don't ask how they're able to live extravagant lives. As far as we're concerned, as long as we can get in on the gravy train, even if a politician...
even the United Kingdom has a law called unexplained wealth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, the Unexplained Wealth Act that says that if you are living beyond your means, you have to come and explain how you got the money. But here we celebrate success. We don't care how they got the money. And it's a blessing. And if one of my people happens to get in there and steals, I don't care that he stole. I just care that he can bless me with part of what...
Or you ask him to cut soap for you.
Yes, and in terms of... the sale of the refinery that was reversed, had it not been reversed, it goes back to the issue of even if it hadn't been reversed, would it be more of the same in terms of the leakages? So we'd still be where we are
But it
today.
will be in private hands.
Yeah, it will be in private hands, which makes it, which compels it to find a way to profitability. But it will probably take a decade of them having to restructure the entire... It's not... Look, the refinery does not run just on technology and just the tanks that do chemical processes to change crude oil to all the component parts. That's just one minute aspect of the whole process. There's a human management aspect of it that's just as important as the chemical process itself. And so if you get the technology right, and you refurbish them, you renovate them to working standards, what happens to the people who run the place? What happens to the security guards who man the gates when the tankers are going out with unaccounted for fuel?
So, I mean, if you look at this, what's your take on the presidency highlighting that they might need to sell the refineries? And Nigerians are saying, why do you have to sell the refineries? And then there's also the talks that most times anything that has to do with government never works until you sell the refineries. So should we sell these refineries?
Yes, well, you see, the thing about it is that government has no business in business. There's no government anywhere in the world that has engaged in business that has done it successfully. Government, by its very definition, does not run business well. So a refinery should not be in government hands. It should be a PPP model to protect the interests of Nigerians. It shouldn't perhaps be completely 100% sold, but government should have an interest in it. And government as a regulator will always continue to oversee them anyway. But should we sell, should we not sell? The point is, having kept them all this time, they haven't benefited us in any way. Rather than that, they've actually harmed us because they've been taken away from resources that could have been put to education, put to health, put to infrastructure, put to other sectors that are crying for resources and attention. So I look at it and I think, if something is not working, and keep trying the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result, what's that common saying? You're fooling yourself.
All right.
I think you'll get a different result.
We need to go on a very quick break, and we'll come back and still continue the conversation regarding the NNPCL and discoveries, the latest mouth-watering discoveries. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. We're still taking a look at the current situation concerning the EFCC and the alleged recovery of millions, and you could say, of naira and dollars in the NNPCL. Now, do recall the former chief executives of the NNPC, Milikiari, Abubakar Yaradua, and others were alleged to have misappropriated about $2.96 billion earmarked for the rehabilitation of Port Harcourt, not forgetting to the Warri Refinery. And you could rightly say these refineries, although it looked pretty much as a well-designed and documented farce, it never started, it never kicked off. I don't know if you're aware of what took place in Port Harcourt. Remember when they brought the bottles and said, this is our own field?
There was a banner, journalists came.
They did a documentary and so on and so on. By now, shouldn't people be in prison? by now.
Absolutely. People should not only be in prison, but the keys thrown away. In China, you'd get executed for doing less than that. The Port Harcourt scenario was reminiscent of the Nigeria Air Force,
Oh, yes.
if you remember that.
Exactly.
Same thing at play. It's all, it's theater. It's all theater. And I think it's a crying shame that such a deception would be carried out on the Nigerian people. It goes to show that the government has very little regard for us.
What do you recommend in terms of the media? Because, I mean, they invited the media for that parley, and some of them even went as far as, celebrating that, yes, it's real. So how do we do our due diligence? Because you can't, you're a guest, and you can't go there. I mean, it's the journalist's job is, okay, is it raining outside? Party A says it's raining, B says it's not raining. The journalist is to go outside and confirm if it's raining in that sort of situation. Because, it's very recent memory, and we saw the pure deception. And a lot of media agencies did report it as, being functional, and they were showing that bottle of crude oil that they refined to petrol or whatever product it is. How can we be more thorough or circumspect in such situations that we don't fall victims of Nigeria Air or the scam
hoax
refineries?
Yes. Well, there's an aspect of journalism that's called investigative journalism, and we don't see that much of that in Nigeria. When you're talking about a journalist's job is to go and see if it's raining outside and report that it's raining. An investigative journalist will find out why is it raining outside. Upon whom is that rain falling, and what effect is it having on? This is where the buck stops at our desk, is that we do general journalism more. And of course, the media industry has its own issues, which is beyond the scope of our discussion here today. But I think that the media has as much a responsibility as even the public to ask these questions and interrogate these issues. Like Joe said, if a person like Mele Kyari and Yaradua have been indicted for misappropriation and nothing has been heard about it since then, why is there silence and docility from even the public? Why are we not making noise and asking that these people be brought to book and made to pay the price?
Or the Hajia that recently transferred 44 billion into account by mistake.
Yeah.
Do you know how many zeros it takes to...
That's beyond my capability to compute. Yeah. But you see these things happening, and they say Nigerians have famously short memories. But I think it goes a bit beyond that we are a bit complacent and docile.
It's either we're being complacent and docile, or Nigerians have felt overwhelmed by the system.
Or a sense of hopelessness.
Exactly, a sense of hopelessness, sort of lethargic approach, because it feels
how can we fight them? What can we do about it?
I can't beat them, join them.
Yes.
I don't want to join them. I can't beat them, so I might just as well stay out. Maybe
out of it.
Nigerians are overwhelmed with all of that feeling of helplessness.
It's quite possible. I mean, it's a psychological situation that for too long we've been barraged with so much that it gets to the point where you just become inured to it. It's like you don't notice it anymore.
So what would be the low-hanging fruit now that the EFCC can, hold on to maybe, of course, there's the breach of trust. Nigerians don't feel like they completely trust them, and when they come out to make these announcements, it just feels like media trial at its best.
Yes.
So what would be the low-hanging fruits and the immediate steps that the EFCC can take now to ensure or to affirm Nigerians and let them know, look, we actually are in the fight against corruption and we're in this with you. We're not going to sweep this under the carpet.
Prosecute and jail a couple of high-profile people. Prosecute them publicly, convict them publicly, and then penalize them publicly. Let us see. Not the kind of penalty where you say this person gets a 10-year jail term and they do 3/4 of it in a hospital or in a private guest house. But I mean, kili or kuje type of punishment that we can see.
The way they threw Ms. Comfort's
they were so quick.
They were quick. Yes, absolutely. So why are we not so quick to throw the Mele Kyaris and the Yaraduas and everybody else who have misappropriated our public commonwealth? I think that if you make some high-profile examples, one thing about this case that I find interesting and I think holds some hope is that I read that the EFCC chairman himself took this case upon himself. This was not based on a petition. EFCC generally functions based on a complaint. That he just looked at it and said, why should Nigerians be suffering from high fuel prices because we can't refine enough locally, and yet we have 4 refineries sitting moribund? So he called for the files himself on his own initiative and looked through them and saw the sheer volume of money that has been sunk into these enterprises in the last 25, 30 years. And he was so chagrined to the point that he spearheaded the investigation himself and decided he was going to do something about it. So maybe we will now begin to see, even though the fact that they did a press release without naming names kind of gives me a little bit of pause. But the fact that he personally initiated this and he's spearheading the investigation, maybe we are making slow steps in the right direction to begin to fight corruption properly.
All right, thank you so much for joining us this morning. The ball is in the court of the EFCC. You have a lot to prove to Nigerians, and it will start by high-level prosecution, doing it publicly so that Nigerians can see that you actually mean business and you're putting your money where your mouth is.